Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that continuous arising of the cause and effect are called Paṇḍitā. And Sayadaw explained the continuous arising of these cause and effect, the Paṇḍitā, with the example of agriculture in planting a tree. In order for the yogis to understand. And as Sayadaw is not satisfied with the explanation, Sayadaw will continue to explain today. Sayadaw has been emphasizing on this talk for the yogis who are pursuing the Dhamma practice. If the yogis do not understand in theory how the cause and effect are connected, they will not have faith and confidence in the practice. Not having faith and confidence, they will not have the wish to learn how the nama rupa are arising as cause and effect. If they do not have the wish to learn how the nama rupa are connected as cause and effect through the practice, then they will not have the chance to gain the true happiness and peace. They will not have the faith and confidence that there is the true happiness and peace. So they will not want to practice the Satipatthana meditation in order to learn the cause and effect, and they will not put effort in the practice. Not exerting effort in the practice, it will be difficult for them to discern the nama rupa. Not discerning the nama rupa through the practice, they will not understand how the cause and effect keep arising in rotation through the practice of Satipatthana. So if they do not understand the cause and effect through their practice, they will not discern the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self. Not discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, Vipassana knowledge will not develop. If Vipassana knowledge does not develop, then they will not gain the unique happiness that excels many times than the worldly happiness. Not knowing the continuous arising of the cause and effect, then they will not practice. Not practicing, the cause and effect rotation will not come to an end. So Sayadaw wants to explain to the yogis that by cutting the cause, the effect, the resultant, will also come to a stop. And Sayadaw wanted the yogis to understand how the samsara vata, how the suffering of the round of existences keep on rotating, and how the suffering of the round of existences can be cut. Understanding the example of the tree yogis will understand how these cause and effect can be cut. By practicing Satipatthana meditation, the causes and the results can gradually come to a stop. And in place of suffering, there will be happiness and peace. And Sayadaw will continue to explain today so as to clarify. First of all, Sayadaw explains the example of tree, how the generations of tree rotate. Sayadaw explains how the tree comes into existence. In order to keep the tree green and healthy, the nutrients from the soil, the fertilizer, and from water, these keep the tree green and moist. And also, there is the oxygen from the air and the sun that generates the sap of the tree. So the oxygen from the sun and the air, as well as the nutrients from the soil, fertilizer and water, keeps the tree green and fresh, and such nutrients are keeping the sap in the tree so that the tree will live. So as much the tree gets the nutrients from the soil, water, sun, and the air, the sap in the tree will pervade, and then the tree will be alive. So according to the Western study as well, in order to keep the tree green and alive, there should be the oxygen from the air and sun, and the tree will be alive. So for the tree which gets the nutrients from soil, water, sun, and air, the tree will grow and it will give flowers and fruit. If the tree does not have the sap, then the tree cannot give fruit, and there will not be the next generation of the tree. The tree that does not get oxygen will dry out. So it is very important to get the oxygen from air and sun in order to keep the tree green, and the tree will give fruit. A dry tree cannot give fruit, and if the tree is dry, it cannot give fruit, and it will not generate the next generation of tree. So when a tree gives fruit, there is the seed in the fruit. The seed in the fruit has the gene in order to give rise to the next generation of trees. So from the seed, there are the genes that will give rise to a new tree. So the seed will give rise to the sprout, and from the sprout into a tree. So when a fruit ripens, it leaves the genes in the seed that will generate a new tree. So that's why the tree has to be alive. There should be sap in the tree. When there is the sap in the tree will be alive, that is able to give rise to fruit. The fruit has the seed, and the seed has the gene that will generate a new tree. So in order to have the generation of new and new trees, the tree should be kept alive, and the tree needs the nutriment from the soil, fertilizer, water, sun, and the air, so that the tree will have the sap pervading in the tree, and the tree will be alive in order to give fruit to the fruit that has seeds, that has the gene to generate the new tree. So in order to keep the tree green and alive, there needs to be the factors such as soil, fertilizer, water, oxygen from the air and the sun. In order to kill the tree, one needs to block the supply of these nutrients from the soil, water, oxygen from the air and the sun. So when these supply of nutrients are cut, then the tree will become dry and it will eventually die. So in order to kill the tree, the sap in the tree should die out. In order to dry the sap in the tree, one needs to cut the supply of these nutrients that are obtained from the soil, water, air, and the sun, so that the tree can no longer absorb these nutrients. So according to the study of the tree generally absorbs these nutrients from the root of the tree, and also the leaves also absorb the nutrients from the air, the sun, and so on. So in order to kill the tree, one needs to do things so that the tree can no longer absorb these nutrients. So one way to do it is to cut the roots of the tree so that the tree can no longer absorb the nutrients. And there is also another way to do it. That is to peel the bark of the tree for about 1 feet. So peeling the bark of the tree for about 1 feet, the tree can no longer absorb the nutrients and the tree dies. So this is the way to kill the tree of the teak. It is the way to kill the teak tree by peeling the bark, so that the tree can no longer absorb the nutrients, and thus the teak tree can no longer generate the new tree. If the root of the tree has not been cut, then the tree will not die, and the tree will have new leaves coming out, new sprouts coming out. So by cutting the root of the tree will die, and it can no longer have new leaves or fruits. But after the root has been cut, if the sap in the tree has not dried out yet, there will be green leaves to a certain time. But when the sap in the tree has become totally dry, the tree no longer is alive, and thus there cannot be green leaves or fruits in the tree. In killing the tree, when the barks are peeled near the foot of the tree, then the tree can no longer absorb the nutriment, and the tree will die soon. So it depends on the person who systematically do things in order to kill the tree, so that the tree will dry out and eventually die. The kilesa defilements are compared to the sap of the tree. Based on the kilesa defilements, the good and bad deeds are done. So good and bad deeds have cetana, volition, and the volition that is consisted in good and bad deeds will generate the new life, the new existence. So in this way, they are arising as cause, result, and the subsequent result. When a new existence arises, there will be the genes of avidya, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, and craving. So just as the tree that has the sap will keep on growing, in this way, when there is new existence, there is the gene of the avidya and tanha, ignorance, and craving. Yogi has to practice Vipassana, and by developing Vipassana knowledge, Yogi will be cutting the defilement sap, so that the defilement sap will become more and more dry. And finally, when Magga Jnana, the path knowledge, arises, the defilement sap will totally become dry. Yogis should be mindful of the presently arising object. Yogis should be mindful of the nama rupa so as to develop knowledge. By being mindful of the nama rupa that arise, yogis will develop knowledge into nama and rupa, cause and effect. And yogis should be noting the object with aiming, effort, with ardent effort, with sustained mindfulness, sati. And also the noting mind should fall calm and collected on the object. There should be samadhi, concentration. By noting the presently arising object, having the viriya, sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, the defilements will have no chance to arise. If there is lack of mindfulness, the defilements can arise. Having viriya, sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, the defilements will be prevented from arising. So in this way, having viriya, sati and samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, the mind will be guarded, protected, and thus kilesa, defilement, have no chance to arise. And when kilesa defilements arise, yogis should note it right away, immediately, as soon as the defilement arises, so as to cure the defilement. By being mindful of the presently arising object, yogi will discern nama rupa, cause and effect. Not being mindful of the defilement at the moment, not being mindful of the object, the nama rupa that are arising at the present moment, there will be ignorance, not knowing. As there is ignorance, not knowing, there will be craving. Yogis have to be mindful of the presently arising object so as to weaken ignorance, craving. By being mindful of the object, the ignorance and craving will become weaker and weaker. By being mindful of the object, the defilements will have no chance to arise. These defilements will be suppressed. By being mindful, moment by moment, ignorance, craving will have no chance to arise, and thus ignorance and craving will become more and more distant, weaker and weaker. Yogis have to be mindful so as to weaken these defilements, and finally these defilements will totally be removed. Practicing Satipatthana meditation, when the person develops Vipassana jnana, stage by stage, development of the Vipassana knowledge, stage by stage, will weaken and suppress the defilement. And finally, when the yogi gains Ariya Magga jnana, path knowledge, yogi will uproot the defilement. At the moment, yogi develops Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, stage by stage, the defilement will be removed momentarily. At the time of mindfulness, the ignorance has no chance to arise. Craving cannot arise. If there is ignorance, there will be craving for good things to be seen, to be heard, to be smelled, to be tasted, to be touched. When ignorance is removed, then the dana, craving, cannot arise. When the yogi discerns nama rupa, yogi will be removing the wrong view of jiva atta. By discerning cause and effect, yogi will be removing the wrong view of Brahma atta. In this way, developing knowledge, yogis are removing wrong view moment by moment. Yogi who practices Satipatthana meditation, by being mindful of the presently arising object, the defilement set of avidya, tasna and upadana, ignorance, craving and clinging, will become dry moment by moment. If there is 1 moment of mindfulness per second, in 1 minute there will be 60 moments drying the avidya, tasna and upadana, ignorance, craving and clinging. So in this way, if the yogi is mindful for 1 minute, there will be 60 moments the avidya, tasna and upadana are being dried. And in 5 minutes, there will be 300 moments. In 1 hour, there will be 3,600 moments, avijja, tanha, and upadana are becoming dry. Being mindful, the person will no longer take seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching as good, and in this way, the person will be removing craving by being mindful. So yogis have to be mindful moment by moment so that the defilements, avijja, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, will be dry moment by moment. At the sixth sense door, the desirable objects come into contact. The five sense objects come into contact at the sixth sense door as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing. By practicing Satipatthana meditation, by being mindful of these objects, yogi will discern the nama-rupa, cause and effect. And as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching arise and pass away, they are impermanent, they are no good. So when seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching arise and pass away, they are no good, as whatever thing that dissolves and passes away are taken as no good. So these objects are arising in their own accord. By being mindful of the presently arising object, yogi can discern the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self. Discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, yogi will remove the wrong view of permanent good and self. Discerning the characteristics, impermanent suffering and non-self, the person will no longer regard the sensual objects as desirable. Before one practices, the person takes the sensual objects, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching as good. They have high esteem of the sensual objects. Discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, by being mindful, the person will no longer take seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching as pleasurable, and thus there will not be craving. When there is no craving, clinging will no longer arise. So in this way, discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, by practicing, the person will not have ignorance based on the object that has been noted. There is no ignorance. Not having ignorance, there will not be craving for pleasant things to be seen, to be heard, and so on. So in this way, there is no ignorance. Having no ignorance, there will not be craving. Ignorance, craving has no chance to arise. Discerning the nama-rupa, yogi removes the wrong view of jiva atta. Discerning cause and effect, yogi removes the wrong view of parama atta. Discerning the impermanent, yogi also removes the wrong view of permanence. Discerning that there is nothing good, yogi will discern the wrong view that things are good. When understanding that things are no good, there will no longer be craving. The person will not crave to see good things, to hear good sounds, and so on. So based on these sensual objects, when the yogi is being mindful, by practicing Satipatthana meditation, the person will be drying avidya, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging. So in this way, by being mindful, avidya, tanha, and upadana has no chance to arise, and thus avidya, tanha, and upadana will be dry by being mindful. By being mindful for one moment, for that moment of being mindful, avidya, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, has no chance to arise. Just as a dry tree will no longer have the gene to generate a new tree. So, having the defilement dry, when the defilements become dry, they will not generate good and bad deeds. So in this way, when the defilements become dry, the good and bad deeds will not be generated. And when good and bad deeds are not generated, there will not be more assistances. So in this way, the tree is compared to a being. The sap of the tree are compared to the defilements, avidya, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging. Because there is the sap in the tree will give fruit. And when the sap in the tree dries, the tree can no longer give fruit. In the same way, when there are defilements, sap, then it will generate good and bad deeds that generate the resultant, the next assistance. So when the defilements are dried up, good and bad deeds will not be generated. When good and bad deeds are not generated, there will not be new assistance. In this way, Vipassana, the round of assistances, the round of resultants, will also come to a stop. So in order to kill the tree, the sap in the tree should become dry so that the tree will no longer give fruit. As the tree can no longer give fruit, there will not be the seed that has the gene to give the new tree. So in the same way, the sensual object can no longer generate the defilement from arising if the yogi is being mindful. As the yogi is being mindful, the sensual object can no longer generate the defilement as the yogi is being mindful. So yogis have to be mindful so as the defilement can no longer arise. And when the defilement no longer arise, there will not be good and bad deeds that generate more assistances. If there are not good and bad deeds that generate more assistances, Vipassana, the round of resultants, will also come to a stop. So in this way, the Vipassana practice of the yogi is compared to the killing of the tree. And by practicing Vipassana meditation, the round of defilement will be cut. When the round of defilements are cut, the round of good and bad deeds will be cut, and thus Vipassana, the round of resultant, will also be cut. And this will be all for today. Sadhu, sadhu.